What's up again, YouTube land? Brian here at 3TR, and I got another special top 10s list for you guys. Now, it is currently November 9th on Sunday, and I have less than maybe 6 days before my PlayStation 4 arrives. And before I do that, I had to do a list going over my top 10 favorite third-party games. Now, I already did a video talking about my top 10 favorite PlayStation 3 exclusives, and I'll actually leave a link to that video in the description down below. But now it's time to get on to the non-exclusives list. Now, I'm aware that my list may be very different from yours, and I actually would really like you guys to actually share some of your guys' favorite third-party title games, because maybe you picked some that didn't even consider to me. But to start off really simple and in a very inspiring way, my number 10 on my list is Michael Jackson: The Experience. Now, the funny thing about this is that I actually didn't buy this on the PlayStation 3 first. I actually bought Michael Jackson: The Experience first on the Nintendo Wii. And to be honest, that was actually the only reason I even picked up a Wii to begin with. And then I discovered Mario, Galaxy, and Galaxy 2, and Metroid, but that's beside the point. Anyway, bottom line is that Michael Jackson: The Experience, in my opinion, is probably one of my all-time favorite dancing games that I've ever played, aside from DDR, and if I had an Xbox, maybe I would get Dance Central. But Michael Jackson is unquestionably my favorite music artist of all time, and he is probably the only artist in the history of music that I actually feel comfortable dancing and singing to. And this was just a great game. I even had a lot of fun playing with some of my friends and brother when I went to go visit him a couple years ago for another one of our birthdays together. And it's just a real shame that he left us so soon, because I really would like to see a sequel to this, although I think a sequel to this is very unlikely. But this is like one of the best party games that I've ever played. I really wish I had a great group of friends, like a birthday party or just a little gathering, that we could play this together and have a damn good time. So that's why it is number 10 on my list. Now, going on into number 9 was actually a big surprise for me, because this was a game I really thought I was going to hate the hell out of, and within the first hour I actually did start to hate it, but the longer I played it, the more I fell in love with it, and that was Metal Gear Rising. Now, you guys know me. Metal Gear Solid is unquestionably my all-time favorite franchise of all time, and even Metal Gear Solid 4 is my favorite PlayStation 3 exclusive game that I've ever played on this gen. But Metal Gear Rising was a big surprise, because I really didn't think you could take that type of formula and put it into a hack-and-slash environment. And for the most part, they didn't really do that, but they weren't even really trying. They actually managed to focus on a character who actually could function in this new futuristic telling of the Metal Gear Solid lore. And the action was off the charts, it was bloody, and even some of the storytelling was quite dark. A lot darker than even I thought they could go with the Metal Gear Solid storyline. So, this is a clear example of, just like in movies, don't judge a game by its cover. Give it a chance, give it an honest chance, and it may surprise you. And it's fair for me to state that this game was the biggest surprise of the year, or might I even say the entire gen of this generation. So that's why it's number 9. Number 8 on my list is Star Wars The Force Unleashed 1. Now, to be honest, I actually did a video a while back talking about how I don't like going to midnight releases anymore, but this was actually the first game I ever went to a midnight releasing for, and it was a lot of fun. This is unquestionably the best Star Wars game I've ever played, not just in gameplay, but in storyline. I really would love to see this game get adapted into a movie, and it's just a shame that it kind of had a pretty disappointing sequel, but just as a game on its own, it worked. The combat was great. The storyline involving Darth Vader's secret apprentice was great. The environments were well detailed. It really did feel like the proper chapter to fit between episodes 3 and 4. And it's at this point in time, with how Force Unleashed 2 ended, I really hope that they make a third one. Maybe we'll get one for the next generation, but with the direction that Disney wants Star Wars to go, that is pretty unlikely. So that's kind of unfortunate. But that still doesn't change the fact that it is my number 8 on my list. Going on into number 7, maybe a bit of a shocker to some of you, but that is Call of Duty World at War. Now, this is actually my favorite Call of Duty of all time, and it was actually the first Call of Duty I actually got to play on this gen. I actually skipped over 4, so I can't really give you my initial thoughts on it. But I like how this actually does focus on World War II, and I believe that in terms of Call of Duty, in the entire history of Call of Duty games, it has never ever been stronger than it was when it was going over the World War II era. I'm not really a big fan of how it is now, because it is generated to move towards focusing on multiplayer than actual storytelling. And to me, personally, I believe this was really the last game where it was a well balance of all three elements. It had a great campaign with a great storyline that allowed us to see both sides of the war during the American side and then playing as the Russians on the Eastern Front. No, not Eastern. Sorry, I'm getting confused. Anyway, and it was also the only Call of Duty game that I ever was religiously playing the multiplayer. I was actually a Call of Duty multiplayer addict for a couple of months, and this was also when zombies were first introduced, and I believe zombies were never done any better than they were in this game. They've kind of been a little bit generic now that every game seems to want to put zombies in it, but this is where it all started, this is where it is at its strongest, and that is why it is number 7 on my list. Going on into number 6, we have Mortal Kombat 9, or newest Mortal Kombat, simply titled Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat is unquestionably my all-time favorite fighting franchise of all time. It takes dumps all over Tekken and Street Fighter and all those other fighting games you can think of. Mortal Kombat does it simply better than them in every way. It has fatalities. It had, in my opinion, probably the single best Mortal Kombat storyline that actually allowed itself to be a proper reboot, just like J.J. Abrams was actually able to reboot Star Trek in a really good way. And I definitely like the combat, the look of the characters, how they each had individual endings for storylines. The online, although was a bit lagging, it was actually one of the few games I actually enjoyed playing online, aside from a few other games I played this gen. And it really did revitalize Mortal Kombat from where it was going with a series of Deadly Alliance, Deception, and Armageddon. And it just brought it back to its roots, but gave it a newer paint job, and it worked phenomenally well. It has some of the best fatalities, and in my opinion, the single best fatality in Mortal Kombat history is in this game. And whoever came up with that idea needs an award, or I need to shake their hand, because that was probably the most grittiest fatality I've ever seen. If you think you know what it is, please tell me in the comments down below, and I'll give you a shout out. Number 5 on my list is a game that I was actually never a fan of to begin with, and that was Tomb Raider. I was never a fan of Tomb Raider to begin with. I always felt that Lara Croft was a bit too much of a superhero, and the fact that they rebooted the franchise and gave us a much more vulnerable Lara Croft and took her back to her roots and put it in an environment or a setting that we had never quite experienced. And what I mean by that, like, we were never quite in an island where we kind of were always on the edge of our seat. And in my way, I know this might sound a bit controversial, but it actually managed to outdo Uncharted on many levels. I will say this, if they do make an Uncharted 4, and I recently saw some posts saying that they have an Uncharted 4 set to go, I really want it to be a much more open world like this game was, because if it's not, then there's a very good chance that Tomb Raider 2 will simply outdo Uncharted 4 in every way, shape, and form. And that is why I'm happy to put a Lara Croft game on my list for number 5. Going on into number 4, we have the sequel to only one of 3 games in the history of gaming to ever scared the living shit out of me. Seriously, because I have stated many times that no movies or games can ever scare me, but the predecessor to this game pulled it off, and that is Dead Space 3. Sorry, Dead Space 2. What is going on with me tonight? I'm tired as hell. I absolutely loved Dead Space 1, and Dead Space 2 simply took it to the next level in almost every way. We got several different environments. Isaac Clarke was actually had a voice, so he actually felt like a real character, as opposed to how it was in Dead Space 1, as you only were being told the story through vidlogs and little text messages, kind of explaining what happened with the Ishimura and the Unitologist and the Marker. This definitely went much more into depth into the psyche of Isaac Clarke and why he plays an essential, major lead role in this overall world of Dead Space. And I really had a great time with Dead Space 3. I really hope they do a Dead Space 4 because the ending of 3 was very satisfying. But going back into 2, it simply is better than Dead Space 1 in every single way, which is why it is also number 3 of the only 3 games in video game history to ever scare me, alongside Resident Evil 4 and Dead Space 1, and that is why it is number 4 on my list. Going on into number 3, we have a game that kind of surprised me because I actually didn't even buy the system that this originally came out on, and that is Mass Effect 2. I was a bit just skeptical about Mass Effect. I thought it was a bit overrated, and many people were even saying that this was like the Empire Strikes Back of video game storylines, or video games in general, in this type of sci-fi environment, and I was kind of calling it BS at the time, but once I got my hands on it, I couldn't stop playing it, and they are right. This is quite possibly the single best science fiction game with a RPG and third-person shooter element ever made. Now, I know that there's been some controversy with how Mass Effect 3 ended, and I'll admit it, I was on board with it too, and I do not think that overall Mass Effect 3 is a better game than 2. 2 was definitely much more balanced, it was much more focused, and I think that the overall storyline was simply the true meat of the Mass Effect franchise, even before the Reapers start to really make their presence known, which is why I'm more than happy to add Mass Effect 2 as number 3 on my list. Going on into number 2, we have Batman Arkham Asylum. This was actually another game that I actually went to a midnight releasing for, and I actually have the collector's edition right over there. And this is one of the few games that really changed an entire genre of games. Comic book video games had really kind of been always joked about, but once this game came out, no other game in this genre has been able to match it. It's had 2 really great sequels in Arkham City and Arkham Origins, and this definitely stands apart from both of those because it feels much more contained, and it actually kind of feels like Batman's in a cage, and he's surrounded by all this craziness, and it went into his psyche. There was a great set of moments between Batman and the Joker. There was a great number of Batman moments, which would make I personally believe this would make a really great movie, and to this day, I really do not believe that we will ever see a comic book video game of this kind even reach the level of masterful mechanics, design, and gameplay that Batman Arkham Asylum did and started. And I hope its legacy continues to grow and even evolve into things we can't even imagine it going to. And finally, number 1 on my list. My number 1 favorite third-party game of all time is Bioshock. There is no question that out of any game that I have played in the past 5 to 6 years on the PlayStation 3, none of them captured my imagination and took me to a world beyond anything I could imagine. Rapture is unquestionably one of the most imaginary, unique, and just breathtaking environments I have ever experienced going into. And the fact that your character doesn't really talk allowed me to actually put myself into the game. So I actually felt that I was actually in the game myself, and I actually had to make these decisions. Like when it came to the little sisters, I had a choice to either save them or harvest them. I tell you this much, I have never harvested a little sister. I don't even know what it looks like. I don't even want to risk looking on YouTube to know how terrible that is. And I have to tell you, the twist at the end with Atlas was pretty shocking, and many people even consider it to be one of the greatest twists in video game history, and I'm inclined to agree. The fact that Bioshock really is just one of the most completely unique, original storylines in every way, shape, and form. Gameplay, storytelling, environment, design, mechanics, formula. It is a master at all of these, and when you bring all these elements together and put it into a game like this, how can you not make it number 1? And with that, that is the top 10, that is my personal top 10 favorite third-party games that I've played on this generation. And if you like this video, please feel free to like, comment down below, and please subscribe to track me in my future movie, video game reviews, and topic videos. And you can also press one of the links in the description down below to follow me on Twitter or friend me on Facebook, and I will be sure to follow you and friend you right back. And please, like I said at the beginning of the video, please tell me, what were some of your all-time favorite third-party games that came up for this gen, because I would really like to know. And like always, thank you guys for watching, you're awesome, and I will see you next time.